Hi and welcome to my cutting garden. It's early June and it is D-Day, Dahlia Day. So I am going to be planting out my dahlias ready for the summer season of all of the beautiful flowers that they will produce come August time. So if you've seen previous videos, I have shown you how to pot the dahlias up. I've shown you how to take cuttings for free. I've also showed you how to pinch them out, and I've showed you how to prepare the soil, so literally just putting some extra compost on there so they've got really good nutrition to get them going. So now in this video I want to show you how to plant them. It's not difficult, so come along and I'll take you through the steps I do. Because it's a cutting garden, we're not so precious about spacing so much, and I hesitate to say that because obviously they need enough space to grow, and different plants will require a different amount of space, and even within dahlias, different dahlias will require more space than others, and it's about perhaps trial and error a little bit, because blackjack, which I've got over there, is a big plant, whereas snowflake will be quite a small plant. And so you don't need as much space between snowflake as you do blackjack. But on the whole, kind of err on about 2 foot. Now, I say that, and I didn't do that, or the guidance is 2 foot. So that's a 2 foot stick, or just shy of 2 foot. And so in theory, I should be spacing them out for adequate growth on that. But because I'm using them for cutting rather than display in the flower bed, then the flowers, I will be cutting the flowers earlier, so there is always a constant shift of how much foliage and flower there is on the bed. So the plants are kept quite trim. Obviously there is still some foliage there and some plant there, but they don't need as much space as one would think. So if that's 2 foot, last year I probably did a foot, and they grew absolutely fine, and I had flowers. Now, looking back, I maybe should have had a little bit more space, which I will do today, and see how far I get within the flower bed to see how much space I can have. So I will position them out first and show you where I think everything will grow. But planting them closer together allows them to have a little bit more self-support, so that they don't all flop over onto each other. But you still need to have a little bit of air circulation in there so you don't get any pests and diseases involved. So without further ado, let me place out all of the dahlias that I'm going to be using this year. So when it comes to positioning your dahlia bed, then you need to think about how much sun it gets. So they need lots of sun, they like warmth, they like heat, they don't like frost, so they will be killed off by frost. That's why we don't put them out until you've passed the last frost date in spring. So this is now the 6th of June, and therefore we're well past the last frost date, so we should be absolutely fine. I actually usually plant them out about 2 weeks prior to this, but things have been going on and I'm a bit late, but that doesn't matter. We'll get through that, all catch up. It's not going to be a problem. But they come from South Africa, so they like warmth and heat, and they will go right through till the first frosts, and then the frosts will burn their leaves and that's when you dig them up. So the bed that you're looking for is in as sunny a spot as possible. They will create more flowers the sunnier it is. Now, the bed I have, this is, the whole bed is about 4 metres, but I've got about a metre worth of other plants at the end. So I've got 3 metres by roughly 1.1 metres, 110 centimetres wide. So in theory, if I'm using my stick measurement, then I'm planting right on the edges. So I'm planting a little one here, so if I put it further back, so I'm planting on the edges around about there. Now that seems a lot of space in the middle, so what I'm going to do is, that's fine there, but I'm actually going to shift it in a bit so they've got 2 dahlias either side. We're not too close to the path, so there's no chance of everything spilling out over onto the paths, and everything is contained in the bed. But it'll be 2 rows of dahlias going along, and we'll see how many we can squeeze in. I certainly want all of my dahlias in, and I have some spurious ones that I can put out into pots if they don't fit in, and and when I say spurious, they're unknown, so I've lost the label. I don't know what they are. I have a feeling they are zippity, which is a lovely pink, like a pom-pom one, I think. I think it's that, but I could be mistaken. But I just have none of them. None of them came back, and I had quite a few last year, and I've got quite a few of these unknown. So that I'm guessing that it's zippity that is the unknown dahlias that I have. So I will be planting those out elsewhere in the gardens if there's any excess. And I seem to have a lot of urchin, which is a deeper pink cactus type, which is really lovely flower. But last year, and it could be because I planted them so close together, they were quite short stemmed. So even though the flower was absolutely beautiful, they weren't really useful for a cut flower. So I'm going to space those ones out further, give them a bit more room, and see if I can get a longer stem to be able to put them in flower arrangements. Again, I've got a lot of them, so any spare will be going elsewhere in the garden in pots, so that we can appreciate them everywhere else as well. So this year, normally I just put them in kind of randomly. This year I'm going to be colour coordinated, and I'm going from darks through to the paler pinks as we go, taking in the oranges. I don't know why, I just thought I'd be a bit fancy this year. Invariably it'll go horribly wrong, and there'll be a random orange in with the pale pinks, but we shall see. So that's my plan. I will space them all out now, and we'll be back once it's all done. So you may have seen me jiggling things about there, and that was because I thought I was running out of space to get the ones that I definitely wanted in the bed in, and so I was taking out the Café au lait. And Café au lait is a beautiful dahlia. In fact, what I've got is a Café au lait Royale, I think, or Princess, something like that. It's kind of got a deeper pink streak through it. They're lovely, but the flower heads are massive, so they're classed as dinner plate dahlias. So really big flower heads, and actually not as useful in not as easy to use, put it that way, flower heads as you would expect or hope in a flower arrangement. So in the garden, brilliant, but not so great if you're wanting to have them in a flower arrangement. So I contemplated taking them out, then I've put them back in. What I think I'm going to do is just leave one in. So they do end up quite a big plant. So what I don't want is them squashing out its neighbours and the neighbours being ones that are better for cut flowers. So I'm going to leave one in, and one can go elsewhere in a pot in the garden, and we'll take it from there. So that's it set out. Let me show you the spacing from above. So here we have it from above. So as you can see, width-wise in the bed, the pot is pretty much 2 foot apart from the outside of each pot. If you're using the stick as an example, pretty much trying to get it in. Pretty much 2 foot apart, but that isn't the case width-wise. But I feel that it's open on either side because we've got paths either way, and in between is wide enough. So that should be fine, plenty of room for growth. So it's pretty much like that all the way through. With the random cafe au lait that I'm putting in there. And again, what I've done is diagonally, so it's got space either side, but diagonally we have some space from the other plants. So rather than squash it in sort of in between here, I've put it in the middle, so it's got a bit of extra space there. And then we go right through. So this, in theory, should start white, working through pale pinks, into darker pinks, into oranges, into red, deeper reds, and then into the blacks. We'll see what that looks like when it all flowers, if it indeed works that way. But that's the layout that I'm going to go with. Last year, I am sure I planted them much closer. I think, in fact, I had at least 3 in this similar width. It was maybe slightly wider, but 3, if not 4, of the smaller dahlias crammed in. So this, for me, is really quite spacious spacing for the dahlias. So hopefully we should have a good show by the end of the year. So now let's get planting. So here we have the first dahlia, this blackjack. The dahlia has the tuber sticking out. Now we can plant it, what I'm going to do is plant it up to the majority, so that the majority of the tuber is underneath, if not all. It doesn't matter how deep you plant a dahlia, to be honest. When you're planting it in pots, it's more about whether you're wanting cuttings. So you can plant the whole tuber underneath the ground and they will come and sprout up. The time for taking cuttings has pretty much gone with most of these dahlias. Therefore, it's about protecting the tuber, and I am going to plant them deep so that the tuber is covered. That's the plan. So let's get that out of the way. Now this soil is quite solid because we've had no rain for several weeks. So it is going to take a little bit of digging and breaking up, which is interesting in a no-dig bed. But for planting purposes, then obviously that is fine. So there we go, we have a hole deep enough to plant it. What you don't want to do at this point in time is break off the shoots. So plant it in. We might need a little bit more actually. Scoop out some more. There we go. Break up the soil around it so that it makes it easier to grow. Label it so I have a bit of an idea of where we are. And I shall water that in a little while. Now this is one of the cuttings. This is one of the cuttings that I took. So let us see. It's not going to need a very big hole, so let me see if I can get it in. Ready? There we go, so I have the hole ready. As you can see, it's got roots. It's even started forming its little tuber. So it's got the roots, so that will grow fine. Let's put it in. Didn't need that big a hole. Put it down. And that's those two done. Just another 16 to go. Okay, I'm pretty much done. As you can see, I planted everything out fairly evenly spaced. In fact, one of the tubers that I was going to plant, when I unboxed it, unpotted it, it was actually rotten. So the random cafe au lait that was going to be in the middle of the bed found a place where that was going to be. I've watered them in, and I have put a very thin layer of straw on there to try and prevent some weed growth. It's thinner than I was expecting because I didn't have enough, so I now need to go and cajole the local farmer to give me a few more scrapings off their barn floor so that it's nice and loose and easy to put on. I don't want a thick layer because I don't want to attract too many slugs, but I do want it enough to cover the soil so that it can suppress weed growth and retain water. So that's the plan. I need a bit more straw and then we're on to staking. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I'll catch you in the next video about staking so that we can get this day completed.